when Formula One drivers drive for celebrities.
Relax, relax. No, you're almost too fast. Oh, okay.
Starting with the day Lewis Hamilton left this supermodel terrified. It all happened in 2018 when the two teamed up for an advertising campaign. The idea was for Hamilton to get behind the wheel and use his skills to scare the model Gigi Hadid. But to Hamilton's surprise, before that could happen, he was the one who had to be the passenger.
Need a ride?
Lewis. Nice car.
So far, everything seemed pretty calm, right? Too bad that calm didn't last very long. This model did something that made E-World Champion nervous. And it didn't stop there because shortly after, she took a turn so fast that Hamilton had to scold her. But if things were already wild with her behind the wheel, with Hamilton driving, it turned into complete madness. Just look at what happened. You could see the panic on her face, but there's no doubt she must have loved every second of the experience. But this is just the beginning. On another day, Max Verstappen was challenged to push an ordinary car to its limits and left his girlfriend absolutely terrified. But first, let's check out this moment when Daniel Ricciardo took a presenter for a high-speed lap and drove her absolutely crazy.
Oh my god, can we do it again?
In 2022, Alison Hammond did a report for This Morning to show what it's like to experience the thrill of being in a race car, and Daniel Ricciardo was invited to be her driver. And well, the two hit it off straight away.
With this guy. Are you ready, babes?
Oh, I was born ready.
Let's do this. Highway to hell!
Sing it for me now.
Highway to hell!
Good thing they were having fun, because despite all the laughs, Alison was actually pretty nervous. So much so that as soon as Daniel started to speed up, she immediately began screaming.
Daniel! Daniel, think of the weight distribution!
By this point, she was already clinging to the door, but even then, Daniel didn't hold back. Take a look at what he did next. Mate, that must have been absolutely thrilling. But despite all the fear she went through, Alison made sure to say just how much she loved the experience.
Amazing! That's the most frightening thing I've ever gone through, but also the most exhilarating thing that I've ever gone through. Thank you
really
so
good.
much. He's a good driver, isn't he?
I know.
Really good driver.
I keep telling them.
Oh my god, can we do it again? Can we do it again?
Now, if just sitting next to the driver is already that scary, imagine how insane it must be to interview them in the middle of all that. That's exactly what Will Buxton did.
Pepperoni. Whey! Jesus. Oh man.
Will had the honour of being the passenger of one of the most skilled drivers in the world, George Russell. And as a reporter, of course, he couldn't miss the chance to ask a few questions. But that was anything but easy.
Russell, what's your hometown? Well, I live in Oxford now. I grew up near a place called Wisby.
What's the highest level of education you've gone through?
Up to GCSE. I left school when I was 14 and did home education. But,
Oh wow.
yeah, had to be done.
I've no idea how he manages to do that at such speed, but unlucky for him, things are about to get a whole lot worse.
No, you don't.
And Wolverhampton Wanderers.
What's your cheat meal?
Pizza.
What kind?
Bit of pepperoni. Whey!
What's your favourite holiday destination?
Italy, northern Italy.
Oh man.
It seemed like with every question, George pressed the accelerator even harder, and by this point, Will was already looking for something to hold on to. But it didn't stop there, as he still had to endure the sharp turns, and George even threw in a few drifts for good measure.
Dream car.
This car, GTR.
A celebrity crush.
Meghan Markle.
What would you be if not a racing driver?
I think a footballer.
Who's your hero?
Schumacher.
Favourite ice cream?
Vanilla.
Best Muppet?
Best what, sorry?
Muppet!
Best what?
Muppet!
Best Muppet? I don't have a best Muppet.
But you know what's even more incredible? The day they picked a fan to go for a ride alongside George Russell.
Oh my god.
It all started when this boy was given an unbelievable opportunity.
Because you have really, really good fans, we'd love to bring you into the paddock for the day.
What luck! And of course, they made the absolute most of this amazing gift. But the most emotional moment of all was when he finally met his biggest hero.
Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. What's your name, sorry?
Felix.
Felix.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah.
But they barely had time to chat because as soon as he fastened his seatbelt, George took off at full speed.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh, we get a bit of a drift here.
Whoa.
How fast are we going? It's about 150 now. And F1 we're coming in at 200.
Pops. Whoa. Oh, you gotta brake.
But of course, the best part is seeing the smile on the fan's face. He just couldn't hide the excitement.
How the hell do you do this any faster than this? Oh, the DRS sign. Oh my god, we're gonna hit it. The win last week was amazing.
Try and go for another win this weekend.
Yeah, I've got a good feeling.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And in the end, there was only one word that could sum up the whole experience.
Oh my god.
As crazy as that moment was, the truth is it's nothing compared to what Max Verstappen did with his ex-girlfriend. It all started when Max was in the middle of an interview and someone asked him what it's like to drive a normal car. But what he didn't expect was that, right after his answer, he'd be challenged to do something insane. Drive a regular car on a racetrack and push it to the absolute limit. But it didn't stop there, because on top of that, he had to take his girlfriend along in the passenger seat, and her reaction to seeing how Max really drives was absolutely hilarious. That moment must have been absolutely unforgettable, no doubt about it. But you know what might have been even funnier? That moment when Daniel Ricciardo made a journalist scream in fear. But before that, it was comedian James Corden's turn to be driven absolutely mad by Hamilton.
Get set. Oh, okay. Oh my god.
In 2014, Puma had a brilliant idea: bring together one of the world's top comedians to interview one of the world's best drivers.
Hello, I'm James Corden. This is Lewis Hamilton. Hey. I've got one lap to ask as many questions as I can. Lewis, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Now just take a look at what came out of it.
On your marks. Get set. Oh, okay. Oh my god. Right, favourite film?
Coming to America.
Favourite football player?
Messi.
How many crashes have you had? Oh my god!
Hamilton hadn't even fully stepped on the accelerator yet, and James's reaction was already hilarious. But just wait until you see what happens when Hamilton decides to put his foot down.
Who's your hero?
My dad.
Is there anything more exhilarating than Formula One?
No.
Although what Hamilton did right after that was way worse.
True or false, you wear your helmet in bed?
False.
Do you ever play with your helmet in bed? If you were going to sing me a song, what song would you sing me?
After a lap like that, what would your reaction be? I think mine would be pretty much the same as James's.
Come on now. Whew. Oh my god.
We're done, man.
Thank you. That was amazing. I can't feel my legs. It's ridiculous.
On another day, it was Daniel Ricciardo's turn to take a journalist for a high-speed lap, and her reaction was truly emotional. In 2017, Red Bull hosted a promotional event where several journalists were invited to experience firsthand what it's like to be in a race car. Lisa Gotts was one of them, and from the start she was very nervous, but luckily for her, Daniel Ricciardo would be her driver.
Comfortable? Yes, of course.
The first time?
Yeah.
Good thing Daniel was pretty calm. If it had been Hamilton, this lap would probably have been a lot different. But of course, Lisa Gotts also had her moments of tension.
Hello, I trust you.
It's quite windy.
Yeah.
But what happens when a driver has to take another driver in the passenger seat?
Yeah.
On this day, retired driver and commentator Johnny Herbert had the chance to take a lap with Lewis Hamilton, but what happened left him completely stunned.
Like to go now, you've got Sebastian on the left-hand side, Max on the outside. What are you looking for?
Go to the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Because Max is on your right.
What are you thinking?
And of course, Hamilton finished the lap by drifting as much as possible.
Yeah! Now you're getting into it, like it. Bang! Woo! Oh, yes! I can see what you were trying there. This is it. This is the Donut King. Yeah! Woo! Yeah, show off.
I'm sure Johnny must have loved getting back on the track, especially alongside a champion. But you know what's even more emotional? The day Lewis Hamilton took the legendary Frank Williams for a lap.
We're just saying, Lewis, like, Dad's got 2 laps to try and convince you to come to Williams.
But wait a minute, before that, let's take a look at the incredible moment when a young driver had the joy of meeting his biggest idol.
This is full gas for us. Like we don't lift. So much on the steering.
Kenzo Craigie started karting at the age of 6, and right from the beginning, his talent quickly caught the attention of the entire world. One of his biggest dreams was to meet his idol, Lewis Hamilton. And on that day, not only did he get to meet him, but he also had the chance to take a lap with him. You can see in his eyes just how happy he is, and luckily for him, this moment is about to get even more incredible. But I think the best part of all this must have been hearing what Hamilton said as soon as the lap ended.
That's fun.
Yeah, so fun. Thank you so much.
One day you can take me out.
Yeah.
In the next case, it was the world's most famous chef who got to feel that thrill alongside the official safety car driver. It's quite nervous.
I mean, he is the safety car man. I get home in one piece.
If he was already like that before it even started, it's no surprise that when Bernd floored the accelerator, he went absolutely crazy. Is that Bernd wasn't even trying to scare Gordon, and yet the chef was already clinging to the door. But his fear didn't end there. What happens when a Formula 1 driver takes a basketball player for a spin?
Oh! No. My head. Oh my God.
On that day, Lando Norris gave Jimmy Butler a ride and drove him absolutely wild.
Oh. Hey, whoa, relax. Relax. No, man. You're going too fast. Oh! No. My head.
Who would have thought that such a big guy would be so scared of speed? But by far the best part was what he said as soon as he managed to get out of the car.
Good luck. You're driving like a bat out of hell in there. I wasn't scared, Joe. I made it. It's okay.
But out of all the times drivers took celebrities for a ride, none was as emotional as the day Lewis Hamilton drove for Frank Williams.
We're just saying, Lewis, like, Dad's got 2 laps to try and convince you to come to Williams.
For those who don't know, Frank was the founder of the legendary Williams team, and under his leadership they won 9 constructors' titles and 7 drivers' titles. All of this even after he suffered a serious car accident in 1986 and became a quadriplegic. This makes the moment with Lewis Hamilton even more impressive.
Maybe he won't show up. Are you alright? Good, yes.
No, you're not.
Oh man, it's such a pleasure.
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good.
You good?
My ego's growing up very fast. I'm expecting great things.
So they told me I need to drive slow.
You're joking.
It's incredible to see how happy he is to be alongside Hamilton. But get ready, because this moment is about to get even more emotional.
When's the last time you went around the track?
A long time ago.
Really? Oh jeez.
Too intelligent people.
1 lap, yeah?
Okay. One lap, yeah.
And of course, Hamilton did everything he could to make sure Frank could fully experience the feeling of being back on the track.
Oh shoot, it's magic. God. With the brakes, it's a soul machine.
Yeah, that brakes it.
And to top it all off, just take a look at what he did. But by far the most emotional part was what Frank said when they were finishing the lap.
Very enjoyable, very enjoyable. Quite unforgettable, I must say. Quite unforgettable, Lewis. So that'll live in my brain for a long time to come, Lewis.
Unfortunately, Frank passed away on November 28, 2021, just 2 years after his meeting with Lewis. But moments like this remind us that legends never die. Frank Williams may have passed, but his legacy and inspiration will never be forgotten. In the next case, Lewis Hamilton tried to scare the Mercedes engineering boss. In December 2024, there was just one race left for Hamilton to complete his contract with Mercedes, and he wanted to say goodbye to Bono in a special way, by taking him on a fast lap and showing him the thrills of the track. But despite working with cars for years, his nervousness about being next to Hamilton was huge.
Right, let's go, bud. One last time.
But he's right to be nervous, especially because we're talking about Lewis Hamilton. So of course he tried to find a way to make Bono really scared.
Oh man.
This moment must have been really special for Bono, especially since together they had already achieved 84 wins and 6 world titles. And this is clear in Bono's heartfelt thank you at the end of the lap.
Thank you, Dad. Appreciate it, mate.
But what happens when the most famous commentator in Formula 1 has to do his job in a car going over 124 miles per hour? That's exactly what happened to Alex Jacques, and his reaction was absolutely hilarious.
We're going down the inside! Oh, we've backed off! Into every corner we go!
Lando Norris is one of the most charismatic drivers in Formula 1, but if there's one thing he's really good at, it's scaring his passengers. Just take a look at how his meeting with Alex went.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. In the car with Lando Norris, ready to go. And we leave the line. Here we go in Silverstone. We want the full effect, all right. We want full attack. We're going down the inside. Oh, we've backed off. Absolutely flat to the floor through here normally. Can we go to the inside?
Now that's talent. Even nervous about the speed, he still manages to do his job really well. Of course, Lando Norris did his best to make his life as difficult as possible.
Oh, fantastic stuff. Brilliant. Make our way through 8th corner and onto the Wellington straight. Oh, brilliant.
That was just the beginning. Check out what else Lando had in store for the commentator.
That is so intense on the brakes in the Brooklands. Oh, a lot of people saying you're faster now because of the upgrade. I think it's because of your new beard, my friend. It's looking good.
By Alex's reaction at the end, it was clear that he really enjoyed the ride.
Oh, that was absolutely magnificent, my friend. Unbelievable. We are here. Mate, thank you so much.
Right then, back in July 2020, I bought these deep section carbon wheels direct from China using AliExpress. They're from a company called Elite Wheels, and at the time they only cost me 265 quid, which is crazy. So 3.5 years and about 3,500 miles later, how have they held up? My name, as always, is Luke, and welcome back to Trace Velo. Right, so these are easily the cheapest carbon wheels that I have ever bought. 265 quid, including delivery to the UK. It's bonkers. And while we're on the topic, import duties, I paid 35 quid to Parcel Force to get them over the border, which, yeah, isn't too bad. Just to be totally clear, that's 265 quid for the wheels plus 35 quid for import duty. So in total, pretty much spot on 300 quid for these things. Yeah, isn't too bad. So incredible value for these things. A 50mm deep section, 6-bolt disc brake, tubeless compatible carbon wheel set. And weight-wise, we're looking at 1,607 grams, but that includes the rim tape on there as well. So at about 10 grams for that, just under 1,600 grams for the pair, which isn't too bad. Now, I still use these wheels all the time. I'm not too precious about them, so they've become my set of beta wheels, so I don't mind if they get knocked around or if I get caught in the rain, stuff like that. So for example, I'm using them on this bike here behind me. I built this up a couple of months back. It's become my sort of winter training bike. So yeah, these wheels have seen all sorts of really crummy weather this winter. So we are going to take a proper deep dive into the state of these wheels. I've got some new gear so I can get some gratuitous close-up shots. I'm getting the endoscope out. Yeah, it's gonna get geeky, but I love episodes like this, and hopefully you'll pick up a few tips about wheel maintenance in the process. Anyway, before we crack on, Elite Wheels have not sponsored this episode. The little paid promotion flyout you might have seen in the corner, that pertains only to the Sirocco sponsor spot I'll put later on. I bought these with my own money, also using an AliExpress account that has no affiliation to Trace Velo either, so I wouldn't have got any special treatment from them or anything like that. And although I've worked with Elite Wheels since buying these, they also have no idea that I'm putting this episode together. I just know that with these cheaper Chinese bike parts, longevity is often a concern. So with that in mind, let's dive in. Okay, so let me open with the fact that these wheels still run really nicely. That's not to say there isn't any sign of wear and tear, which we'll get onto in a minute, but I ride them most weeks and they've just been dependable. But let's check them out and I'll cover the maintenance I've done, any issues uncovered, and what I've had to replace thus far. Okay, so visually, this is what they look like pretty much fresh out of the box. Neat and tidy with some nice looking decals, and this is what they look like now. So the Elite decals aren't under a layer of clear coat like they are on some wheel sets, so they've sort of chipped off over the years. So much so, to make them look a little bit tidier, I actually scraped that diamond shape off that sits above the eye with a knife a few months back. They just look a little bit cleaner without it, I think. There are no dents or major scrapes in the carbon either, and the edge of the rim is also in really good nick. Hopefully you can see no deformation or chips or anything like that. Admittedly, I am quite a careful rider, but I've bottomed out on more than a few potholes over the years, and yeah, these rims have seemingly just shrugged it off. Also, importantly, there are no cracks around the spoke nipples either. With a poorly built rim, when the carbon is laid up, if it happens to be a little thin around the inside edge, you can run into problems. Spokes are under a lot of tension, especially over bumps in the road, so over time you can have a bulge form around some of the nipples or even a crack in the carbon. I found this example of what it can look like on Reddit. Once this happens, the wheel is basically toast, but yeah, no sign of it here at all. One quick tip, actually, I came across these valve stickers years ago, and now every wheel set I own gets them. So when you're using a regular inner tube, they stop the valve from rattling inside the rim, and if you're running tubeless, they stop that little nut on the valve from sort of eating into the carbon underneath when you screw it tight. Yeah, just super useful and really, really cheap as well. So I'll stick a link in the description.
Right then, spokes. So these wheels normally get outfitted with Pillar 1423 spokes, which are fine, but when I bought them, I upgraded to Pillar 1420 spokes. They're a little slimmer and lighter, so over both wheels, I saved about 100 grams actually. Yeah, which is pretty good. Elite Wheels did supply me with 2 spare spokes in the box. Not exactly loads, but better than nothing. However, I haven't needed to use either. All the spokes have been completely fine. None of them have broken or anything like that. Now, spoke tension. This is an interesting one and can be quite telling of how well a set of wheels has been built up. I haven't touched the spoke tension since I got them, and hopefully you can see here both wheels are still running really true. I got them set up in a truing stand to check this, and yeah, easily under 1mm of lateral movement. Pretty impressive. They're also very round, less than 0.5 millimeter of radial run out on both wheels. However, I also took the tension readings of all the spokes to see how well the wheel is balanced. Now, a really really pucker, like an exceptional wheel, will have the tension of the spokes on each side within a 5% variance of each other. Basically, you measure all the spokes on one side of the wheel, find the average tension, then calculate how much each spoke deviates from that average. The best result I've ever seen is from this set of 9 Velo wheels I looked at last year. You can see here, over both wheels, only one spoke is outside that 5%, which, yeah, it's pretty bonkers. For these wheels, a 5% variance is a bit unrealistic. That's sort of reserved for the best of the best. So I upped the allowance in variance to 10%. This is still completely fine, and a lot of wheel builders will aim for 10% variance as a sort of decent benchmark. With that in mind, here are the readings for these wheels. Only 5 spokes are outside that 10% variance, and to be honest, the vast majority are within 5 or 6. Considering the cost of these wheels, the fact I've ridden them 3,500 miles and I haven't touched any of these spokes, yeah, I think that's a pretty decent result if you ask me.
Now, after seeing the results, those 5 red spokes on this wheel set, they all fall slightly below the average tension, so tweaking them up wouldn't take too much effort, but you need to be careful. Messing around with spoke tension is definitely more of an art than a science. Changing the tension on one spoke can have a bit of a butterfly effect on the rest of the spokes around it, potentially knocking your wheel out of true. So yeah, just be careful on that front. Right, so quickly, today's sponsor, Sirocco. So Sirocco makes some really awesome looking cycling gear that I've genuinely worn on every ride for well over 2 years now. It's all super comfortable stuff with some really high quality fabrics and construction. I mean, each garment has these nice high quality little touches like reinforcing on high traffic areas like pockets, and the extensive use of flat lock stitching, which creates a strong and flexible seam that also lays flat against the body for comfort. So look, there's a reason that I've worked with Sirocco for so long. I really do love their stuff. It's just great quality, no nonsense cycle gear for a great price as well. So if you did want to pick up some stuff, anything from cycle glasses to socks, gilets, bib shorts, jerseys, then use my link in the description down below. Save yourself 10% off the entire site, and it also helps me out a bit as well. Anyway, thank you for listening, and if you did pick up something from Sirocco, thank you for supporting the sponsors that support me. Anyway, let's crack on. Also, just FYI, I've been having a quick look. If you want to save a little bit more money, some of the summer cycling gear this time of year does go pretty cheap. For example, this SRX Pro jersey here, it's really nice and normally goes for about 60 quid in the summer. Right now it's 37 quid. And the jersey I was wearing in the clip earlier, yeah, this M2 jersey, 34 quid at the moment. So yeah, maybe it's a bit early, but have a think about summer, I suppose. Anyway, let's crack on.
Now, going back to the rim, another concern is galvanic corrosion between carbon and aluminium, but also between aluminium and steel. In these situations, when water and a bit of salt is introduced between these different materials, it can act a bit like a battery, normally corroding the more reactive aluminium. You can end up with examples like this, where the aluminium spoke nipples are badly corroded and covered in a white oxide. This is why some wheel builders will swear by brass nipples. They're heavier, but galvanic corrosion is normally less of an issue with brass. As it happens, the aluminium spoke nipples used here, they appear to have a decent anodized coating, which is going to help delay any of that galvanic corrosion. Looking from the outside, most of them look okay, but you can see a little bit of white discoloration on this one. But to make sure, I removed the tire and then the rim tape to check the state of the nipples inside the rim. Moisture does have a tendency to kind of stick around in here, so if this is an issue, I'd expect to see lots of corrosion and white oxide. But yeah, hopefully you can see pretty much zero corrosion on any of these. But since the rim tape is off, I may as well take that corroded nipple fully out to have a really good look. But once I started unthreading the spoke, you can see there's definitely been some corrosion between the aluminium and the steel spoke threads. I'm not particularly surprised, to be honest, and considering the age, yeah, it's not too bad really. So the nipple itself here, it looks absolutely fine, to be honest. Zero corrosion on the surface, and with the spoke out, I also took the opportunity to check where the head of the spoke inserts into the hub flange. Again, steel spoke and aluminium hub body, definite recipe for galvanic corrosion. But yeah, looks okay. Very thin layer of aluminium oxide, but no real corrosion to be concerned about, so I'm not too worried about this. But the spoke threads, on the other hand, a little concerning. So in this case, I greased the threads and replaced the nipple, just to be sure.
So the external anodizing of those aluminium nipples definitely doing its job. I've said nipples so many times this episode, but yeah, no real evidence of any corrosion between the carbon and the aluminium, but to be expected when riding in all weathers. There is some corrosion on those steel spoke threads. Realistically, I think all of these aluminium nipples will need to be replaced at some point, but I'll keep an eye on the spoke tensions. If there's any major changes, it could be a sign that some of the threads are starting to fail. But for the age of these wheels and the conditions that I ride in, this sort of wear and tear, it's par for the course with these materials. Now, in the original video I did on these wheels, I laid a bit of criticism on the hubs, mainly because they're a no-name brand, at least here in the UK, and in addition, the weatherproofing, the weather sealing of these hubs, it didn't seem that great. So they've got some rubber seals around the end caps and then a large orange O-ring around the free hub, but nothing super extensive. However, they have been pretty good, actually. So the bearings they're supplied with are NBK bearings, which to be expected are on the sort of more budget end of the spectrum. They're generic steel deep groove RS or rubber seal bearings, 6903 for the front and then a pair of 6902s for the rear. So they're very common sizes as well.
The NBK bearings on the front wheel, they're still absolutely perfect to be honest, but on the rear I've had to replace them. From my experience, this is very common. The rear bearings, they'll always go first. The rear hubs have to cope with loads more water spray in the wet, and with the free hub there too, there's just more opportunity for water to seep in and sit right next to those bearings, causing damage. They also deal with much higher loads compared to the front. The rear is where all the power is delivered after all. In fact, if you want a bit of a deep dive on bike hubs and some of the limitations on this current design, Peak Talk just dropped a great video on a pretty revolutionary type of wheel hub, which yeah, you might want to check out. But luckily, as mentioned, the bearings are a very common size, so I got a new set for the rear from eBay for less than £5. They're made by Dunlop, so admittedly not a top quality bearing, but you can obviously spend more if you want to. So getting the worn out bearings removed from the rear hub, it's pretty straightforward. I actually bought a cheap bearing press years ago for installing press fit bottom brackets on another bike of mine, but with a little bit of ingenuity, it can also be used for hub bearings as well. Now, for the front hub, there's no separate axle to help push the bearings out, but there is this inner sleeve between both bearings. You can push it to one side and then slowly working your way around in a circle, you can tap the bearing out on the other side. Now, the free hub. So considering the mileage that I've done on it, yeah, it looks alright actually. So both of the original bearings inside here are fine and not too much wear on the cassette splines either. Now, finding a replacement free hub at a local bike shop for these random Chinese hubs, that's going to be tough. However, last week I dropped a message to Elite Wheels on AliExpress, again using the generic account that I bought them with, and yeah, they still offer replacements. They got back to me super quickly. I paid £35 and it's on the way as we speak. Again, as mentioned last time, for a seller on AliExpress, customer service, it's honestly pretty good from what I've experienced. Now, free hub engagement has never been a problem with these wheels, but let's have a quick look at the teeth of the ratchet inside the hub. I believe this is a hardened steel insert that's pressed in here, and yeah, looks great. I gave it a quick clean, very little signs of wear, and no obvious rounding or chipping of the teeth. So yeah, all good from what I can see. Now, one more thing is pretty essential. Free hub sound check. So yeah, just as loud as before, easily my loudest set of wheels to be honest. Right then, lastly, let's have a look at that axle for the rear hub.
Now, just to act as a bit of a benchmark, the rear axle on this set of 9 Velo wheels that I checked out last year, it's frankly a masterpiece. So it's made of extruded and then machined aluminium, same as most rear axles in this application, but it's got a hard anodized coating put on there, and the bearing surfaces are hand finished to 0.003 millimeters. I mean, a human hair is 0.04 millimeters, so the tolerances are so precise. This rear axle, on the other hand, it's aluminium, but it's not got an anodized coating on there, and it's not going to be hand finished, but I think it's held up remarkably well. Again, Peak Talks video does a really good job at explaining some of the stresses placed on rear axles like this inside bicycle hubs, but given the age and the mileage that I've done on this thing, I think it looks really good.
So the tolerances with regard to bearing fit are totally fine actually, hopefully you can see that here. And where the steel bearing surfaces have contacted the axle, there is some slight discoloration, but that is all it is. Hopefully you can see in this close-up, there's no pitting or a lip where the aluminium has been worn away or anything like that, and you can run your fingernail over it and you can't feel any ridges. So in situations like this, you would normally try and put something between the steel bearings and the aluminium axle. For example, on bottom brackets, you often see a nylon or Delrin sheath over the bearings so they won't sort of eat into the axle of the crank. But yeah, here, the axle has held up really well actually. I'm impressed. But I've no doubt it's definitely been helped by how I maintain these wheels.
So like I mentioned, these are my beta set of wheels. They're cheap, so I'm not super precious about them. If it's raining outside or I just need to pop out for a quick ride, these are usually the wheels that I gravitate towards, but I still do basic maintenance. The first and most important thing I do, keeping the hubs well greased. I won't necessarily strip them down and clean them out regularly, but every month or so I'll check the bearings, make sure the grease behind the free hub is renewed, and also put some on the axle if I can. And importantly, I'll put some grease behind the hub caps. A little bit of grease here goes a very long way to keeping water out of those hub bearings. And in addition, if I do get caught in the rain, I'll leave my bike in the hallway next to the radiator overnight just to completely dry things out. I have no doubt that doing these little things has dramatically increased the lifespan of these wheels. So yeah, these things have really impressed me. With some basic maintenance, they ride pretty much just as well as they did when I first got them out of the box. Now, in terms of ride quality, this is almost impossible to quantify and completely subjective, but I think they're lovely. Not the stiffest wheels that I own, but with a deep section carbon rim and 24 spokes front and rear, plenty stiff enough for me. Yeah, no creaks or groans ever, just no faff. Get out there and ride. Now, in the original video on these wheels, I did note a small issue when running tubeless tires. Essentially, when I deflated the tire to add the sealant to it, on the front wheel, the bead of the tire did pop off the rim slightly.
Right, I'm gonna see if I can recreate the issue now. So I've got the air shot tank charged up. I'm gonna release it, seat the tire on the bead, and then we'll go from there. So you heard those pings. The tire should be nicely seated on the rim now. So I'll release the pressure, and you'll see the tire will just pop off of the rim. Boom! There we go. You can see it right there. The tire's just popped off the rim, and it was properly seated. And I've actually done this several times now, and it's made no difference. We got sealant leaking out there. So yeah, this is a perfect example of the issue that I've been facing.
Now, the rim profile hasn't changed shape, so presumably this is still an issue, but it's never really bothered me. Running these over the years, I've noted that once you set them up tubeless, some of the sealant does inevitably kind of slightly solidify round the edge of the rim anyway, which helps hold the tire in place. So when I've deflated them in the past, after I've had them set up for a month or two, the tire no longer pops off the bead like it did in that clip. Plus, over the last year, I've been running them with regular clincher tires and inner tubes anyway, so it's not been a problem. So given the price that I originally paid for these wheels, yeah, a glowing review from me. The value for money on these things is just off the scale. But to be frank, that is a sample size of one, right? Reading the comments on the last video from people that bought a set of these wheels, the vast majority of experiences are positive, but there were a couple of negatives in there as well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't cover the other side of things. Most of the negative stuff I saw was to do with shipping, actually. So a couple of people had their wheels just lost in transit, and apparently Elite Wheels didn't do much to help. That might be because AliExpress technically runs all the shipping logistics and not the seller, but I'm a little bit unsure on that. And then someone else had some cracks forming the rim after a few weeks, and then returns became a bit problematic because, yeah, returns to China can be more complicated. Now, it's obviously difficult for me to comment on these. I don't have the full context. Some of these could be bogus or, you know, just leave important details out. But regardless, it is, you know, the nature of the beast with regards to these direct-to-consumer Chinese products. From my personal experience, given they're a Chinese company, the customer service they offer on AliExpress has been great.
And on that note, I'm just finishing up the edit here behind me. The free hub arrived this morning. So what's that, 11 days since I paid for it on AliExpress? For, yeah, like a Chinese company, that is not half bad for customer service, I would say.
The customer service they offer on AliExpress has been great, but then again, my wheels have been fine for the most part. I've not needed to return them or rely on the 1,000-day warranty they apparently offer on the listing for these wheels. You need to remember, buying from AliExpress is not like buying from Amazon or a local retailer. If you do run into issues, it's gonna be more complicated. You're not gonna, you know, get it sorted overnight, and you're probably gonna have to jump through a couple more hoops than you're used to if you're processing a refund or a warranty claim. So while this discussion might take the shine off these wheels somewhat, I think it is important to cover stuff like this and not just whitewash everything. And while we're on the topic, this video up here is a great rundown of buying stuff like this through AliExpress, kind of shows you what to expect and offers a few tips to help you in the event that you run into issues. Also, while we're on the topic, when I was writing the script for this episode, I was doing a bit of Googling and I came across this thread on the forum Chinatown, and I'll link it down in the description. Chinatown is a forum where they discuss cheaper Chinese bike products, and this person apparently faced an issue with their purchase from Elite Wheels. Now he or she says the wheels were damaged in shipping, so you know they arrived broken, and Elite Wheels didn't offer a refund. Again, I don't have the full context, so I'm just gonna have to take what they've written at face value, but they also claim that I deleted their comments with regards to this under the last video I did on these wheels. So this isn't true. The only comments I've ever deleted are the super scammy looking ones where someone literally uses my profile picture to pose as me in my own comment section to get other people's information. The only thing I can think is that maybe this person's comments had some bad language in, or maybe some really spammy looking hyperlinks. These comments then get automatically flagged by YouTube and put into a bucket for manual review by me in my YouTube backend. But if I don't get to them in time, they do get removed. So Boost3782, I'm sorry you had a bad experience dealing with Elite Wheels. From reading the rest of the thread, it sounds like you got most of your money back, which is great, but I guarantee you, I didn't delete your comments. Getting both sides of the story, it is such an important part of dealing with stuff like this, and it's one of the reasons that I don't just show the positives. I do follow-ups and I try and show all the failures that I face as well. Buying stuff direct from China, it does have like inherent risk involved with it, and I try and make that risk clear, or at least I feel like I do. Maybe if you don't feel like that's the case, and you hate me, then yeah, leave me a comment to that effect. Maybe put a cupcake emoji rather than a baguette emoji. That way I know you really mean business. Anyway, like I said, Elite Wheels have not sponsored this episode, but I do have some bills to pay. So I've put an AliExpress affiliate link to these wheels in the video description. So if you did want to buy a pair and you use that link, it won't cost you anymore, but I get a little bit of kickback from AliExpress, which is always welcome. Right, anyway, that is all we got time for. So subscribe, hit the like button, and I also hope you enjoyed this shallow depth of field that I've got going on. I've got a new lens. It goes down to aperture 2.8. Bonkers. That's not actually that low, but I think it looks quite good. Right. Exceptional videography. Right. Anyway, see you next time. Ciao.
It's the bonus clip time.
Also, very quickly, I've got to shout out Joe from, he runs a channel, China Cycling, but he set up this business, Panda Podium, and they sent me all this really cool swag for Chinese New Year, which is awesome. This hat is absolutely exceptional. Anyway, yeah, Pandapodium is a wicked idea. This isn't sponsored or anything. I just really like what he's trying to do over there. So if you're a little apprehensive about buying bike stuff on AliExpress, it's kind of understandable. So check out Pandapodium. They stock loads of the kind of Chinese bike stuff, but it's all like the best of the best stuff. They test it all before putting it on the site. All the staff over there are really dedicated cyclists, and they've got a really stellar warranty and returns program, and the customer service over there is fantastic. So yeah, not sponsored at all. I just really like Joe. He's a great guy, and the stuff he's doing at Pandapodium, it's a wicked idea. Kind of wish I thought of it, to be honest with you. Anyway, yeah, check it out, and I'll see you next time.
I've been taking NMN, which stands for...
And that is nicotinamide mononucleotide.
Thank you for pronouncing that properly, Vanita. For over 365 days, along with 17 other ingredients. And in this video, I will be sharing what impact this has had on my cycling, my overall strength, and general health and well-being, including some blood tests I did before and after. However, to get straight into it, the first big thing that I noticed was afternoon energy. I am 43 as we speak, turning 44 in July this year, and one of the big things that I have recognized over the years, say from my mid-30s to now, is a decrease in afternoon energy. I honestly struggle with work at the computer once it hits like 2 or 3 o'clock. I start scrolling, I can't be bothered. Even my decline in YouTube content over the years is evidence for you of my productivity decline. However, in February 2024, I started supplementing with this, which includes NMN. And through that process, within a few weeks, I noticed a marked improvement in my afternoon energy. Why would that be the case? Well, NMN is designed to increase your NAD levels. And NAD is very important for energy production. So it kind of makes sense. Now, some of you might be asking, what the bloody hell is NAD? For that, I'm going to switch to a conversation I had with internationally recognized integrative medicine expert and author Vinita Dahia, whose details I'll link to below.
Well, NAD stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is in actual fact vitamin B3, is needed for energy production. It's a primary energy currency of the cell. It's needed in ATP production. So we eat fats, carbs, and proteins. Why? We need to produce energy in the form of ATP. So it also repairs the DNA. It's needed for cellular signaling. It's needed for muscle repair and recovery. And it has major antioxidant effects.
So I went back to the company that sent me this supplement. They're called AgeMate. And I said, okay, I am willing to make a sponsored video about this supplement, which, let me be very clear with you, that is what this is. You are watching a sponsored video on the proviso that I have some non-anecdotal, factual, data-driven evidence to share with the audience about this supplement and what it's doing to me internally. So in order to meet this provision, which is very important to me because been doing this YouTube thing for a number of years now, and I've got a few haters out there that will want to bring you down no matter what. In April 2024, I stopped taking this supplement for over 4 weeks, and I let it fully wash out of my system. Then, in May 2024, I did a blood test via a USA-based lab called Jaffinity. And side note, this is a lot more challenging than you would think to get blood from your finger, but anyone can do this from the comfort of their own home. What I personally found out a few weeks later is that my NAD levels were in the deficient range, which I've since learned is not uncommon for people approaching 40 and beyond. But I was a little bit disappointed because I feel that I eat well, I don't drink that much alcohol, I sleep well, I do exercise, I feel I do all the right things. So it was kind of like getting a D or an F on an exam. So I posed a question to Vinita, like increasing your NAD levels or having good levels of NAD, can you do this naturally, or do we have to do it via supplementation?
We need to ensure that we're actually taking NAD in the form of food. So here we're talking about vitamin B3. It's found in meat, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, edamame beans, avocados, etc. Another important thing, and you're obviously doing this through your cycling, is exercising. Intermittent fasting could be valuable because that actually generates NAD. Now, if you've done all of those things, you might need your NAD boosters. And these are nicotinamide riboside, which is NR, typically known as NR, or NMN, which seems to be the more potent version of NR. And that is nicotinamide mononucleotide, typically known as NMN.
So despite the fact I feel like I ticked a lot of those boxes that Vinita just described, if not all of them, my NAD levels are still in the deficient range, which unfortunately for me just correlates with the research. The older you get, the lower the NAD levels typically. Now, the day I did the initial blood test, I then went back on AgeMate that afternoon, which includes 500 milligrams of NMN per serve daily, along with some other ingredients I'll get to later on. I then retested my bloods about 5 months later, albeit via a different Australian-based lab for postal service reasons I won't bore you with. So as a result, we have slightly different scales and metrics, but according to Vinita, I've had a 53% increase in my NAD levels, supplementing with the NMN found in AgeMate. So the first thing that I noticed was an increase in strength at the gym. Let's cut to a chat I had with Vinita about this.
I was stuck on eight times 3 chin-ups So I could do 3 sets of 8.
Done you.
yeah. Now I can do 3 sets of 10.
That is brilliant. That's fantastic.
That's increased by 2.
Yes.
And I would say across the board in the gym, my weight has increased, not significantly. I'd probably say somewhere between 2 to 5%. I've been able to increase the weights without experiencing, like delayed onset muscle fatigue or causing injury. I've just increased my strength in the gym ever so slightly, and the chin-ups is the big one. So does that correlate with the research?
Well, just the fact that you are stimulating proline biosynthesis, the fact that you're improving skeletal muscle function, you're increasing oxygenation into your muscle fibers. By doing that, also anti-inflammatory. So you're reducing the inflammation of the fascia. So as a result of that, your muscle tissue starts to improve, more oxygen, and you have more lean muscle mass that builds up.
Please note that my body weight did not change during this period, nor did my frequency of going to the gym, nor a change in exercises. I kept everything the same. Number 2 is improved sleep, which is research-based that increasing your NAD levels should improve sleep quality. Knowing that sleep improvements were to be forecasted, I invested into wearing an ultra-human ring at the start of the process, so I could hopefully share with you some definitive data points on top of the blood test results. However, after digging deep into the ultra-human data, it has taught me a lot about my opportunities for sleep improvement, in particular something called heart rate drop. It's also emphasized that there are a lot of variables when it comes to getting a good night's sleep. So for me to be able to pinpoint something specific that's happened with my sleep, from increasing my NAD levels by 53%, that would just be disingenuous. But what I can say is I feel anecdotally that my sleep has improved by supplementing with NMN. Number 3, afternoon snacking, which probably correlates with afternoon energy. However, I used to be a stickler for a late afternoon bag of chips or crisps. I can easily smash a big bag of these avocado chips. However, I have not felt like that nor done that for well over 6 months. And I feel like this is why.
Do you remember I said to you it actually increases your insulin sensitivity? So NMN is protective against your insulin resistance, right? So at 3 p.m. we go through that, what we call that insulin dips, glucose dips. We need the sugar fix, right? Why? To react to that reactive hypoglycemia.
Number 4 is improved performance on the bike. Now I need to be very clear here that just like sleep, there are so many variables when it comes to endurance sports. So there's not something really specific I can pinpoint here. However, what I can tell you is I recently trained for Australia's toughest one-day bike race called the Grafton to Inverell. It's a 230-kilometre race with 3,500 metres of climbing, and leading into that event, I did 3 monster 5-hour training rides where my normalised power ranged between 270 to 290 watts. That is absolutely monstrous for me. Additionally, I was breaking all sorts of personal records during those rides, but perhaps what was most shocking now that I reflect, there wasn't moody, grumpy, angry, snappy Kev after these 5-hour rides late into the afternoon. Now, to be fair, I was also fueling very well for those rides. I was also taking other supplements, but it's hard for me to fathom or think that having an increase in my NAD levels by 53%, which is going to enhance mitochondrial health. It's going to increase energy production. It's going to help with inflammation. Surely that played into the training effect and also the recovery effect that I experienced. And of course, in terms of the race, I had one of the best races of my life, finishing 3rd in my age group and 4th overall. They are the 4 main things that I have noted. Now, it should be noted that NMN isn't the only ingredient, as I said. It is a supplement designed to help with energy, sleep, recovery, and inflammation. 18 ingredients, 1 scoop, once a day, and it tastes pretty good. And I agree with that. It tastes pretty good in the powder form, but there's one other ingredient in AgeMate that I feel has had quite a positive effect, on me personally, because like a lot of cyclists out there, I am a coffee fiend. I drink 3 a day religiously. What I note, and this seems to be getting worse as I get older, coffees 2 and 3, my mid-morning and late morning coffee, I seem to have this extreme high and extreme crash, like I'm yawning maybe half an hour after I've had the coffee. Now I know what some of you are going to be saying.
Stop drinking so much coffee, you dickhead.
However, one of the other ingredients in Age Mate is called L-theanine. L-theanine in combination with caffeine has shown in some research to provide more of a sustained high and better concentration levels versus the dramatic highs and lows you can get with caffeine alone. Now, how I personally take Age Mate is daily in the morning before my first coffee for the day. So all in all, this has been quite an interesting process for me because, to be honest with you, my desire to do the blood test, to have some factual information to present to you, was driven out of a need to not be criticised for promoting a supplement on the channel. What I've subsequently learned through those blood tests is I actually had some low-hanging fruit. Supplementing with NMN and L-theanine, and I'm sure a lot of these other ingredients, has been really beneficial for me personally. So I want to thank Age Mate for being quite, I'm not going to say pushy, but they were very proactive initially and confident in hoping that I would try it. I feel like I've had such a good experience with Age Mate. It's something that I will take, assuming I don't go broke, for the rest of my life. And I'm hopeful that some of you out there might get some benefits from it too. If you got value from this video, please don't forget to give it a like. Of course, there is a link to Age Mate below if you want to go check them out. And I'll catch you in the next video.
In this video, I'm breaking down the real science behind riding faster for longer. Whether you're training for a century, racing competitively, or you're just trying to hold speed deep into a ride, this is about building the kind of fitness that lasts. I'm Damien Roos, a professional cycling coach, and after helping hundreds of riders improve real-world performance, I've learned that durability isn't just one workout type, it's the result. Now, this isn't strictly a durability training video, but everything we're covering supports it, directly or indirectly. So here's exactly what we'll cover today: bike biomechanics, targeted.
Gordon Gekko is back. Life is fine, especially with a hot new hedge fund.
Are you kidding? The economy's terrible. But you know what? Send me the details.
I once said greed is good. Now it seems it's legal.
Did the movie Wall Street cause the 2008 financial crisis? Now, in this reaction video, I'll break down and explain the financial concepts in the movie called Money Never Sleeps, which is a sequel to Wall Street. Based on my work experience at Goldman Sachs in New York City and at the top hedge funds in the world, I'll also teach you many real finance topics that can help you when you invest. Now stick around, because at the end of this video, I will grade the movie for Wall Street Realism with a buy, hold, or sell rating. Let's begin.
Are we going under?
Harry, you gave me your word. You know I know.
You okay, Lou?
Who are you to talk about moral hazard?
I'm sorry, Lou.
Now, in the movie, Lou, who runs a firm similar to Lehman Brothers in 2008, knows his firm is about to go under, so he unalives himself. Now, I worked at a very large hedge fund, and somebody in our office did the same thing. Now, I say the following with love in my heart. If you or someone you know is struggling, you're not alone. Please know that help is available right now. Please go to this website you see here to be connected with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. For those outside the United States, please search for this right here. Thank you. Now, I know many good people that work for hedge funds, and some are very depressed because they compare themselves to those that make more, and they're never happy. Bud Fox and Gekko represent this from the prequel.
Tell me, Gordon, when does it all end, huh? How many yachts can you water ski behind? How much is enough?
It's not a question of enough, pal. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody wins, somebody loses.
Now, at bonus season on Wall Street, so many people are depressed because somebody made more than them. And the only reason you should look in your neighbor's bowl is to see if they have enough to eat and not to see if they have more than you. Read this book, please. The Dalai Lama said the problem with Western society, meaning Wall Street, is we sacrifice our health our entire lives to make money. Then at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our wealth to maintain our health. Then we look back and we realize we never really lived to begin with. If you can, please live below your means. Let's get back to the movie. Jake here will become Gordon Gekko's son-in-law, and he works at Keller-Zabel, which is similar to Lehman Brothers.
Keller-Zabel's loss today was the worst in over a year, and this big drop may be just the beginning of a much deeper correction. It is an amazing story. Keller-Zabel stock is getting hammered.
Now, whenever you see a trading floor like this on television, it often represents the sell side, which is an investment bank like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley or Lehman, which went belly up in 2008. Now, on the trading floor are traders, other employees, and salespeople who call their clients to get them to transact or buy stocks. Now, an investment bank is a sell-side firm because they're on the phone selling to the buy side, meaning hedge funds and mutual funds that buy stocks or transact. And the sell-side firm gets a commission. And these trading floors are not really that profitable. They're not the main profit driver for investment banks. The main profit driver for investment banks is investment banking. Okay, and investment bankers don't sit on the trading floor. And what investment bankers do is they underwrite IPOs like the Facebook IPO here, for example, and the trading floor is merely a distribution channel to sell the IPO.
You're on a 50% margin, buddy. I can still get you out now at a total loss, but at least you won't owe.
Now, please don't use margin, as many hedge funds go bankrupt because of this. Now, 50% margin means you borrowed 50% of the money to invest. And this is deadly, and you can lose it all in the following example. So let's say that you invest $1,000 in one stock. You put down 50%, meaning 500 bucks, and you borrow, meaning you get margin for the other 500 bucks. Now, if the stock goes down by 50%, meaning the value of the stock goes from 1,000 bucks to 500 bucks, then you still owe the 500 bucks, so you lost your initial $500 investment. Now, in the fall of 2008, many hedge funds used 10 times leverage, meaning for every $1 in cash they had, they invested 10 bucks. So in that case, let's say you used 10 times leverage, meaning you invested 100 bucks and you borrowed 900 bucks. Now, if the $1,000 invested in the stock goes down by 50%, you're down 500 bucks minus your investment of 100 bucks, which means you owe $400, which is 4 times your $100 investment. Now, this movie was set in 2008 when we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working.
Are we going under?
You're asking the wrong question, Jacob.
What's the right question?
Who isn't?
In one incredible week, shares of KZI are down 52%.
Now, KZI, Keller, is like Lehman Brothers. Now, in 2008, Lehman Brothers was using over 30 times leverage. And Lehman was trading with Goldman, Morgan Stanley, and other top firms. And when Lehman Brothers went under, all other banks would have also gone under if the government did not rescue the other banks. Now, this dude in the movie here looks like the 2008 Treasury Secretary and former CEO Hank Paulson of Goldman Sachs, who has always hated Lehman Brothers. And in this meeting, he is meeting with the heads of the investment banks.
Valuations are no longer believable.
After all these years, you say this to me? 3/4 of the banking houses at this table are holding the same paper, and you're gonna let Keller-Zabel fail?
So this is an accurate depiction of what actually happened in the fall of 2008. Hank Paulson let Lehman go under, which almost pushed us into another Great Depression. Now, before letting Lehman Brothers, meaning Keller-Zabel in this movie, go under, Paulson tried to get the other investment banks to bail Lehman Brothers out.
What do you say, Harry? Will you commit on this?
Look, if you want us to bail out Keller-Zabel, all of us will have to participate, like long-term capital 98, and we will need substantial guarantees from the U.S. Treasury.
Now, LTCM, meaning long-term capital management, was a hedge fund in the 1990s that used 25 to 100 times leverage that went belly up. And the government had to partner with large investment banks like Goldman Sachs to bail out LTCM, or a global recession would have occurred and investment banks might have gone belly up. And the smartest finance people on the planet ran LTCM, meaning long-term capital management, including Nobel Prize winners like Myron Scholes, who created options valuation metric Black-Scholes. And so read this book here, please. It's called When Genius Failed, for more details. Now, the lesson here is that you should never rely on anybody, including me, to tell you what to invest in. Always do your own research. Now, in the movie, Bretton James, who plays a mean version of Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan, questions Why should they bail out Lehman, meaning Keller?
You bail out Keller Zabel, who's to say it's not going to happen again and again?
You vindictive bastard.
Who are you to talk about moral hazard?
Now, moral hazard means banks take huge risks and they don't give a damn if they lose money because the government, for example, will bail them out, which is totally unfair because many Americans lost their houses in the 2008 crisis. Yet these bankers that were bailed out by the government, these bankers paid themselves record bonuses in 2010. And Gordon Gekko explains moral hazard here to director Oliver Stone's mother.
Moral hazard is when somebody takes your money and is not responsible for it.
And portfolio managers that work at hedge funds, if they're down a lot on a year and they think they might get fired, then they sometimes swing for the fences and take on much more risk, which is what happened in the second half of 2008. Now, if you want to up-level your career or your investing results, please click the link at the top of the description of this video to set up a call with me. Thanks. Now, halfway through the movie, Gordon Gekko makes this epic speech at Fordham University.
You're all pretty much you don't know it yet, but you're the ninja generation. No income, no job, no assets. You got a lot to look forward to.
Now, this generation, rightly so, hated the government bailout in 2008. And the stimulus program, they actually called the Steal From Us program. I don't blame them. Now, Gekko's mention of ninja also references the infamous ninja loans, which is a type of subprime mortgage given to unqualified borrowers. And ninja loans references the lending standards that led to the housing bubble in 2008. And things were so cray-cray that in 2006, roughly 50% of subprime loans issued required little or no documentation of income or even assets. And more than 1 in 5 subprime mortgages from 2006 were in default within just a couple of years. And firms like Lehman Brothers invested in mortgage-backed securities stuffed with these subprime loans, and they lost 70 to 80% of their value when the housing market collapsed. And Lehman owned about $85 billion in these mortgage-backed securities. And remember that Lehman had over 30 times leverage exposure. And these ninja loans were a major driver of the 10 million plus US foreclosures that occurred during and after the 2008 crash.
I once said, greed is good. Now it seems it's legal. And it's greed that makes the government in this country cut the interest rates to 1% after 9/11. So we could all go shopping again.
That's not accurate. Rates were not cut to 1% after 9/11 per this chart here, but they were cut to 1% by mid-2003. Now, when it comes to monetary policy, meaning the policy of money, the government cuts interest rates to stimulate the economy. Now, how do they do this? Well, let's pretend that I'm the Federal Reserve and you're all large investment banks. I, the Federal Reserve, buy these bonds from you, okay? And in return, you get money. Now that the banks have a larger supply of money, they lend this out to consumers and companies. Now, since there is more money out there, meaning the supply goes up, then the price or the cost of money, meaning interest rates, go down. The problem is, when you can't cut rates when they are basically 0%, which is what we saw in 2008 here, and also in Q1 of 2020 during the COVID crisis. And this can create a bubble because nobody keeps their money in the bank when rates are basically zero. For example, in Q1 of 2020, when rates were 0%, all other asset classes started to rally, including speculative NFTs, baseball cards, and comic books as well. And bubbles are nothing new, as Gekko explains here in his New York City apartment with the tulips bubble.
This is the greatest bubble story of all time. Back in the 1600s, the Dutch, they get speculation fever to the point that you could buy a beautiful house on a canal in Amsterdam for the price of one bulb.
And human nature is the same with all bubbles, as eventually this happens.
They called it tulip mania. And then it collapsed. You buy 10 bulbs for $2. People got wiped out.
Now, when do you short a bubble if everybody knows we're in one? Well, back in 2006 and 2007, I worked for a hedge fund called Pequod, founded by the late great Art Sandberg. And we pitched housing shorts to him in July of 2006, I remember this, like KBH and Lennar, ticker LEN. And our thesis was that we are in a housing bubble. And he very kindly interrupted our short thesis and said, son, I've been around long enough to learn that you never stand in the way of insanity, because markets peak and markets trough, but you can never time it. And I remember being frustrated about not being able to put on the position. But the problem is, many hedge funds are too short-term focused. Like Michael Burry in The Big Short, there is nothing wrong with being a bit early. Let's get back to Gecko's speech in 2008 before the crash.
They got all these fancy names for trillions of dollars of credits. CMOs, CDOs, SIVs, ABSs. You know, I honestly think there's maybe only 75 people in the world who know what they are.
He's right. Hardly anybody understood what was in these complex mortgage-backed securities. And if you ever can't understand a security, like an insurance product, for example, then it means there could be insanely high hidden fees. Don't buy them. And when I worked in the hedge fund industry, my boss would always say, if you can't explain it, then you don't understand.
But I'll tell you what they are. They're WMDs. Weapons of mass destruction.
He's totally right. Warren Buffett referred to complex derivatives as financial weapons of mass destruction. Now, why did the investment banks like Lehman start to invest in these mortgage-related securities? It wasn't just about greed.
Greed got greedier with a little bit of envy mixed in. Hedge funders were walking home with 50, 100 million bucks a year.
And the bankers were envious of the hedge fund bonuses. Now, the way that compensation works for a hedge fund is they often charge 2 and 20. And what this means is they charge a 2% annual management fee in order to pay for salaries and other expenses like rent. But the big money is in the 20% incentive fee. For example, if a hedge fund has $1 billion in assets under management and they're up 100%, then of the $1 billion that they made, they keep 20% of this, meaning $200 million. And the owner of the hedge fund often gives half that amount to the portfolio manager or managers that made the money, which is way more than what the banks actually made.
So Mr. Banker, he looks around and he says, my life looks pretty boring. So he starts leveraging his interests up to 40, 50 to 1. With your money, not his.
This is accurate. And at one point in 2008, Lehman's use of leverage was way more than 30 times. So if Lehman's portfolio went down just a little bit, then they go bankrupt. Investors in the banks had it so good that they didn't care about the risks.
Last year, ladies and gentlemen, 40% of all American corporate profits came from financial services. We take a buck, we shoot it full of steroids, we call it leverage.
And the system was rigged because the ratings agencies like S&P did not downgrade these crappy mortgage-based investments. Because they knew if they did this, then other rating agencies like Moody's would get their ratings business instead of S&P. And as Hank Paulson in the movie Too Big to Fail said, nobody cared, as they were making too much money.
The mother of all evil is speculation, leveraged debt. And I hate to tell you this, but it's a bankrupt business model. It won't work.
Accurate. If you speculate and you don't do your own due diligence, meaning your own investment research, and if you use leverage, then this is a recipe for disaster with stocks, bonds, a mortgage, etc. if you put down well under 20%. And Warren Buffett said the two most important rules of investing are number 1, don't lose money. And number 2, don't forget rule number 1. With speculation and leverage, you will violate these rules for sure. Now, what does Gordon Gekko think about money?
Money's a bitch that never sleeps. And she's jealous. And if you don't pay close attention, you wake up in the morning, she might be gone forever.
Brutal quote, but this comes back to Buffett's capital preservation quote of the primary purpose of investing is not to lose money. You'll be happier and you'll live much longer if you live below your means, unlike people on Wall Street that spend all their money on rent and partying. And Daryl Hannah had a great quote about money from the prequel to this movie.
You may find out one day that when you've had money and lost it, it's much worse than never having had it at all.
Oh yeah? That is bullshit!
She's right though. And please read these books right here on how to live below your means. You've got The Wealthy Barber and The Millionaire Next Door. And as Warren Buffett said, spend what is left after saving instead of saving what is left after spending. Let's get back to Gekko.
The one thing I learned in jail is that money is not the prime asset in life. Time is.
Those are wise words from a crook. Live for today. So many people on Wall Street work their asses off so they can enjoy the last 10 years of their life. Live below your means, and you can live for today and smell the roses along the way as well. So the market is about to crash in 2008. How is Gecko going to profit from this?
You know, there's fortunes to be made. Hundreds of millions of dollars betting against this bubble. Just wish I had $1 million.
So, how do you bet against a bubble like what we saw in 2008? Well, there's a couple of ways. One way is some hedge fund investors like Michael Burry in the movie The Big Short noticed that too many risky home loans, meaning subprime mortgages, were being made. So he wanted to bet against collections of mortgages, okay? And those are called CDOs, okay? And a CDO stands for collateralized debt obligation. And this is a bundle of crappy subprime debt packaged together into one product that investors can buy. Now, recall that subprime debt means risky home loans to borrowers with very weak credit. So what Michael Burry did was he asked firms like Goldman Sachs to create insurance bets that he could buy that would go up if these CDOs went down. And the insurance bets, they're called credit default swaps, or CDSs. And Burry bought them. So when this CDO here went down, these CDS contracts skyrocketed in value. And investors like Michael Burry made a fortune as the credit default swaps went up big time. Another way to make money is to short a stock like Lehman Brothers here. So how does shorting work? Well, let's say that one share of Lehman Brothers is worth $100, and I want to make money from it going down. So I borrow a share of Lehman Brothers from an investment bank like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. Now, I promise to return this share back to Goldman, for example, at a price of $100. Now, while I have this share in my possession, I lend it to somebody else. Somebody else buys it from me. So they buy it from me for, say, $100. Okay, they bought it, I get $100. Thank you. Then Lehman goes down to $1. Let's say it crashes, okay? And then I buy it back from this person for $1. And that's awesome because I just made 99 bucks. Now what I do is I return this share to Goldman Sachs, and maybe I pay a 1% borrow fee. So I just made 98 bucks. What would happen if I sold the share to somebody for 100 bucks and Lehman's stock price went up to 150? Then I have to buy it back for 150 bucks. So I just lost 50 bucks plus the $1 borrow fee when I return the shares to Goldman Sachs. That's why it's called stock loan business. Now, shorting is deadly and exposes you to an unlimited amount of loss, as a stock can go up a lot. In fact, this is crazy. In January of 2021, GameStop, ticker GME, went up about 30 times in 1 month, and it caused hedge funds to lose a fortune, and some of them went under as well. So a safer way to bet against a stock is to buy puts, as your losses are limited. Let me explain this. A put is like an insurance contract. I have life insurance and I pay a small amount of money every month, and I'm worth more dead than alive. It's true. Now, if I lose, I lose the small insurance amount I pay monthly. If I die, my family gets a ton of money. And a put is very similar to that. So what I would do, instead of shorting Lehman, okay, I would buy a put, if I can find it, it's liquid enough. I would buy a put for this much money on Lehman Brothers. If the stock goes down, I make a lot of money. If the stock goes up, all I lose is what I paid for the put right here. Let's get back to the movie. Gecko and his soon-to-be son-in-law, Jake, they both hate this dude, Bretton James, as Gecko went to jail because of Bretton, and Bretton made a fortune shorting Lehman Brothers company, Keller-Zabel, through an offshore fund.
There were some large shorts for money out of the Cayman Islands, something called Locust Fund.
Locust Fund?
These guys made some serious money.
Who is that, though? Who is the Locust Fund?
So it turns out that Bretton James from Churchill Schwartz was involved in this hedge fund called Locust Fund. Now, Locust Fund is pretend, but it's located in the Cayman Islands. And a lot of hedge funds locate offshore, so their international clients don't pay US taxes, and for secrecy, as it's harder to track who offshore investors are. So how is Jake going to get revenge on Bretton James, who indirectly caused Jake's boss to die?
Churchill Schwartz has a huge position in this thing. I want to get short that stock.
Churchill Schwartz is behind that?
It's just a rumor. Might take a hit. About that African deal?
Yeah, I heard they're going to nationalize.
Churchill Schwartz! So what happened was Jake broke the law by spreading a rumor that an African oil company that Bretton James' firm Churchill Schwartz owned was going to be nationalized, which could make Churchill lose a fortune. And this damage caused Churchill Schwartz to lose $120 million. Now, stock market manipulation is against the law, meaning spreading rumors. So how did Breton react to Jake's actions?
You got my attention, Mr. Moore. Come work for me. Where we're a little light is in alternative energy.
So Breton, who is Thanos, is dressed in red like Satan. And the painting behind him is fitting, as it's Saturn devouring his young, which is a theme in this movie as Gecko steals from his daughter and blames Gecko for her brother's overdose. Now, as we see here, art played a huge part in the prequel, and billionaires on Wall Street love to show off their art. And I once worked for a billionaire, and the art in my office was worth way more than my net worth. Now, it's a smart investment, as the supply is literally one, if it's an original, and demand rises a lot over time. And smart investors like to invest in assets where the price increases but supply does not increase, hence why I'm a bull on gold in the long run, ticker GLD. Do your own research. Although, in San Francisco Bay Area, where I live, many billionaires who are cheap don't put art on the walls at their offices anymore, as the left coast here taxes it as part of property tax. Art is taxed as property tax. How crazy is that? Unlike in New York City. Now, how much money do these Wall Street masters of the universe think is enough?
What's your number? The amount of money you would need to just walk away from it and live. See, I find that everybody has a number, and it's usually an exact number. So what is yours?
More.
Now, just like Gecko said, it's not a question of enough is enough, as it's a zero-sum game. And this is why some billionaires who are already loaded break the law. They can never have enough, and don't think for a second that they're happier than we are. It's sinful to make money your god. Separately, where does Gecko prefer to hide his money?
What would you do with your money?
Me? Switzerland, still the best. And a healthy distrust for a big government.
Is that where you keep it?
I did.
So that scene was based in 2008. But in 2009, Switzerland agreed to loosen its strict banking secrecy laws. And by 2010, the US government requires Swiss banks to report US account holders to the IRS. There's nowhere to hide. So what does Jake want to invest in?
This company could change not just the energy market, Gordon, but the world.
Oh, idealism. Idealism, pal. It kills every deal.
Gecko's comment is harsh, but somewhat true. Companies need to stand on their own 2 feet and can't just exist because of government subsidies. Now, in 2008, many alternative energy companies were the worst investments because they only existed because of government subsidies. For example, the solar market was massive in Spain then, and the Spanish government cut subsidies as they had debt issues, which killed the solar and clean tech market then. Plus, these investments can be very capex intensive, and separately, at one point in 2008, oil was at $150 a barrel. Now, Wall Street is in free fall. So the Treasury Secretary, who looks like Hank Paulson, who was the Treasury Secretary head in 2008, calls an emergency meeting of all the top investment bank CEOs, and here's what Breton had to say.
If we don't stop the bleeding, in 3 days, half the banks in this room are out of business. In 5 days, we're all gone.
You men realize what you've done here? You are asking for the biggest bailout in the history of this country.
Accurate. In the fall of 2008, we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working, and Paulson made the mistake of letting Lehman, meaning Keller in this movie, go belly up. If there's no government bailout of the banks, what could happen?
1929. It'll get worse now because it'll go faster. Money markets will dry up around the world by the end of the week. Mobs panic. It's going to be the end of the world.
Now, we were on the brink of disaster in 2008, and Warren Buffett actually made a cameo appearance in this movie.
It's an economic Pearl Harbor. We got to figure out some way to put the fire out, and that means government.
And Buffett was the voice of reason as always during the 2008 crash. And he encouraged investors not to panic following the collapse of Lehman Brothers. And he advocated focusing on the long-term potential of strong companies. And he reminded us all to be greedy only when others are fearful. This is why we have to be long-term investors. And when Buffett buys a stock, he assumes that the market's going to be closed for 10 years after he buys it. Now, think of all the times we panicked when a stock went down and we're kicking ourselves for selling it. And Buffett also said, this one's good, that the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. Think about that. Now, in the movie, Gecko moves to London with his $100 million that he stole from his daughter's trust, and he opens a hedge fund where he plans to make a killing betting against the U.S. markets.
What do you feel about California municipals, Gordon?
No way. Right now, it is ugly times ugly. And that's when the ugly get going. Gordon Gekko is back.
Now, Gekko's hedge fund is in London and not in the United States because he got in trouble with the SEC, similar to Bobby Axelrod in the TV show Billions. So they both manage money now in London because the SEC cannot enforce outside its borders unless US investors are solicited. And London historically has looser hedge fund laws, and hedge funds are inherently international. So you don't really need the US retail investor base to thrive. Now Gekko is back and he's preparing for battle.
Most people, when they lose, they whine and quit. But you gotta be there for the turns. Everybody's got good luck, everybody's got bad luck. Don't run when you lose. Don't whine when it hurts. Nobody likes a crybaby. I'll take 4 winners.
Now, the most successful investors and hedge fund billionaires that I've worked for are incredibly unemotional. They don't freak out when they see volatility and the market is crashing. And they don't over-celebrate with wins. Always be unemotional in business. So how successful was Gekko with his $100 million hedge fund?
Turning 100 million into 1.1 billion in this market takes some brains, right? My guys are good. It's no wonder our new fund is oversubscribed.
Now, Gekko's returns betting against the market in 2008 were likely much better than Michael Burry's returns with his hedge fund called Scion Capital, as shown in the movie The Big Short. And Gekko mentioned that his new fund is oversubscribed, which is Wall Street talk for, hey investors, this is a hot deal, you have to participate. And with IPOs, a lot of investors gauge whether they should invest or not based on the fact that a deal is oversubscribed. Now, you can't always get this data, but Figma's 2025 IPO was well over 30 times oversubscribed. Now, towards the end of the movie, we see Gekko's portfolio right here. We see he has $1.4 billion of long exposure and about 300 of short exposure for a total of 1.7 in gross exposure. Now, assuming he has 1.1 billion in assets under management and $1.7 billion of gross exposure, then this means he's using $600 million of leverage. Now, how do you calculate his leverage? Well, you take $1.7 billion in gross capital invested, divided by 1.1 billion in assets under management minus 1. And this means he is using about 55% in leverage. Now, what is his net exposure? Well, we calculate this by taking his long exposure of $1.4 billion minus his short exposure of about 300 for a net exposure to the market of about $1.1 billion. So he's pretty long the market at this point. And let's hope for his sake that this portfolio was after the 2008 sell-off and near the bottom when the S&P 500 was at about 666 in early March of 2009. Let's talk about Donald Trump in this movie, which was actually a deleted scene.
It's a great place to get a haircut.
I love this place. Been coming here since the 80s.
Well, the 80s are no longer, Gordo.
So director Oliver Stone cut this scene because he said it was distracting. And Trump had 2 pages of prerequisites that include the following. The preferred camera angle is Mr. Trump sitting front face to camera slightly favoring his right side while avoiding his left hair parts. And when he is facing the camera has to be at eye level. And when you're doing a Zoom meeting, to be in a position of power or a position of confidence, try to be at eye level when looking into the camera and try to fill up the whole frame and leave about 2 fingers of room between the top of the frame and the top of your head. Okay, optics really matter, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression with a Zoom interview, of course. Now, did the original movie Wall Street cause the great financial crisis of 2008? I believe it did in part. In the behind-the-scenes commentary of both Wall Street movies, Michael Douglas says he feels uncomfortable with how many people on Wall Street come up to him, thanking him for playing Gordon Gekko in the prequel, as they only work on Wall Street because of him in that movie, this movie here. And so the greed mentality of the 1980s, as shown by Gekko in the first Wall Street movie, from an anti-hero perspective, really influenced many people to put greed ahead of ethics, especially when it comes to moral hazard, which led to many unethical people joining the financial services industry. Now, of course, most people on Wall Street are not unethical, but it doesn't take many rotten apples to destroy the whole darn bunch, which is what took place in 2008 when the 80s influenced greed came to a crescendo And it breaks my heart that the government bailed out the banks in 2008 and the bankers gave themselves record bonuses in 2010. Meanwhile, more than 10 million Americans lost their houses. That's not fair. Let's talk about grading of this movie for Wall Street realism with a buy, hold, or sell rating. The movie did a great job of showing how close to economic chaos we were in 2008 by portraying this Hank Paulson lookalike as Treasury Secretary and Keller as a proxy for Lehman Brothers. However, there were some inaccuracies, like Gecko's mention of a Fed rate cut to 0% after 9/11, which was not accurate. As a result, I'm going to give this movie a hold rating. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next reaction video when I react to finance topics from the first season of the TV show Suits. Thank you.
Some Formula 1 drivers like a car with a bit of oversteer, and some like understeer. Wait, F1 drivers like understeer? It's true, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. But drivers like Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, and Sergio Perez sometimes deliberately set their cars up to understeer. Now, I spent hours watching drivers on boards, and this is a rough guide to which drivers sit on which side of the fence. In the oversteer camp, I put Max Verstappen, Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Vettel, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, and Senna. I mean, there are loads more, but that'll do for now. Then in the understeer camp, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button, Sergio Perez, Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, Dad, Daniel Ricciardo, and Kimi Raikkonen. Now, of course, they've all adapted to different cars and different styles throughout their career, but this is a good rough guide. And we're always told that drivers just don't like understeer, and that is true, but also kind of not. Let me explain. So understeer is when the front end of the car is sliding. You wind on more steering lock and the front wheels don't give you as much grip as you want. And oversteer is the reverse. We all know this. But the main problem with understeer is that there isn't a whole lot you can do about it as a driver. And of course, we all hate that. You really just have to wait for it to disappear. Lift slightly or even brake to get the weight back over the front of the car and get the car to turn in. Whereas oversteer, you actually can do something about. You can correct it with counter steering, lifting off the throttle, or just power sliding and styling it out. And of course, we all like looking like a hero sometimes, even if it is a bit slow. Skills. So understeer is bad, right? Well, actually no. So with Formula 1 drivers, you're not going to see the winding on of loads and loads of lock and sliding the front tyres across the track. It's much more subtle than that. And drivers do hate that kind of understeer, like you might see a novice driver doing on a track day. But there is a more refined level of subtle understeer that can be super fast. And it comes down to the personal preference of the driver and how they like their car set up. So those drivers on the oversteery side all like a pointy nose on the car. What that really means is that they like to have more of a balance of grip on the front axle rather than the rear. In simple practice, that means that they run a car with more load going through the front tyres. So whether that's rake, downforce, or various different settings on the suspension, they have more grip on the front of the car. And of course, you can change all of this at different phases throughout the corner, but that's a whole different video. But all of this combined gives them a more oversteery balance. And for all those drivers, this is very deliberate. They want the front of the car to turn in right when they turn the steering wheel, meaning the car feels agile and wants to rotate. But it does come with a downside. It can often make the car super sensitive or on edge, where the front of the car might deal with the driver turning in with a lot of speed, but often the rear just won't keep up. If you're looking for a free and easy way to learn more about the science behind grip and rotation, I suggest checking out our sponsor, Brilliant, where you can learn about the fundamentals of these principles in their excellent classical mechanics course, where they use Formula 1 to explain physical mechanics. But if that isn't for you, they have thousands of visual lessons that enable you to learn by doing. So you could learn about coding, geometry, or even calculus. There is anything you could think of within the worlds of science, computer science, and maths. Brilliant know you're busy, so they make their courses bite-sized so you can tackle learning complex subjects for 15 minutes at a time. There's always a practical application to the courses that really puts your knowledge to the test, and it's that extra layer of learning that traditional methods just don't do. But Brilliant does. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/driver61 or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription, and you'll want to take advantage of that. Now, back to the video. When I was a young driver racing F1 cars in Boss GP, I was in this camp. I liked the car to rotate quite easily. I liked the car to feel agile and responsive. I felt like it enabled me to carry higher mid-corner speed, as the car could pivot at the apex. But it did come with a downside. In the braking zones, the rear of the car would be quite unstable. So as you begin to blend off the brakes and turn the car into the corner, the rear would likely step out. And if the car wants to rotate too much at this point, that can slow you down. However, it often did make the car better balanced on the exit of the corner. So if you do get oversteer on the entry of a corner, there are a few things that you can do to drive around it. You can come off the brakes a little bit earlier so that the rear of the car sits down as you're entering the corner, and therefore you reduce some of the oversteer, or you can change your racing line. On top of that, you can also change setup, and with a more sophisticated car like a Formula 1 car, you can do that for each phase of the corner. Again, that's a whole different video. But with understeer, especially from the mid-corner to the exit of the corner, there's very little that you can do. Also, as a young driver, you're probably a little bit more aggressive, and you kind of like the fact that the car is right on the edge. It makes it feel much quicker. But as I've matured as a driver, I've actually changed my approach since then. But I'll get to that in a little while. Notice how I've mentioned the entry of the corner quite a lot. Well, this is because this is the most important section of the corner. You're setting everything else up. It's the part of the corner where you can make or lose the most time. This is where drivers like Hamilton, Verstappen and Schumacher were just so good. And so with the corner entry, this is the part where the drivers are most sensitive to the balance of the car. So drivers like Verstappen, Schumacher, Vettel, Norris, Leclerc, Senna all lean towards a slightly oversteery car. Verstappen actually goes as far to say that a car cannot be fast with understeer. It's impossible, especially with the tyres we had this year being a bit more understeer limited as well. You cannot have a car like this. Now, they will prefer oversteer at different points in the corner, all in different amounts. That's why driving is so much fun. It's this fluid balance of rotation through a corner. But these drivers all learn that way for the majority of their career. Well, as I mentioned earlier, it means they can rotate the car at higher speeds. So they can carry more speed in the middle of the corner, and also rotate the car early in the corner to open up the exit of the corner, and therefore be able to get on the throttle a little bit earlier. It also comes with the advantage of the car being more agile, so they can gain time in the changes of direction, like through quick chicanes. Now, it would be wrong not to mention that these drivers are really adaptable. Alonso, for example, has driven some cars with horrific understeer, and he's won in them. He's also driven some cars with a lot of oversteer, like when he was at Ferrari. Actually, there was the Ferrari F14T, and that thing seemingly understeered and oversteered at the same time, so I don't really know how you adapt to that. But back to the drivers being adaptable. Norris drove with a lot of understeer pre-2022, but with the new regulations had to adapt to a little bit more oversteer. But there are other drivers who actually like understeer, and I have to clarify here, they don't want too much understeer, especially on the exits of the corners. No driver likes that. Too much understeer on the exit of the corner, or at any point of the corner to be honest, will slow you down. But especially on the exit of the corner, if you have to lift in the moment when you should be getting flat out on the throttle pedal, it really costs you a lot of lap time. So what exactly do these drivers want? Well, if you have an understeery balance, it means you generally have more grip at the rear of the car than at the front. Front will be the first area of the car to slide. So imagine coming down to a corner. As you get on the brakes, the car transfers more of its load onto the front wheels. And because you have a slightly more understeery balance, when you trail brake into the corner and the front is still loaded up, the rear of the car is going to be more settled. So often you can carry more speed into the apex of the corner. Drivers like Alonso, Perez and Hamilton all use this effect to be able to brake later, and then rely on their skills to get the car turned mid-corner. Heikki Kovalainen actually said this about Hamilton. The area where I fell short of Lewis was in the braking zones. He was able to get harder on the pedal much later and still be able to make the apex and carry the same speed as me out of the corner. Now, a lot of that is down to Hamilton's incredible feel on the brakes and simply his driving talent. With a slightly understeery car, you can also have a benefit on the exit as well. Because the car is rear biased, you often get better traction coming out of the corners. There's simply more grip to use. Where oversteery cars might be sliding at the rear, and then the driver has to get on the throttle, which might make things even worse, driver with a hint of understeer can more firmly plant the throttle and have great traction. And this is what I learned later in my career. Yes, if you have an oversteery car, there is more you can do as a driver to correct the car on entry, through the apex and on the exit. But just a hint of understeer in the middle of the corner then allows you to get much better traction on the way out, if it's done absolutely right. There's more too. If you have a little bit of an understeer, the rear tyres aren't sliding as much on the entry, the apex, and even on the exit. So it makes it a lot easier to save tyres. And you can see that with Hamilton, Perez, and Alonso. Now, that's not saying that an oversteery driver can't save tyres, because Max does it extremely well, but it is more challenging. Lewis Hamilton spoke about this back in 2014 when he finished his first season in a Mercedes. I've always needed a car with good rear grip. I don't mind if I have to struggle with the front because you can catch that up. But I've always wanted to make sure I had plenty of rear grip, and I've rarely had that before. And you can see that in Jenson Button's driving style too. Check that out in this video here. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.